being on the ship. Anyway, for those of you that like Firefly, I'm so terribly sorry, but it overreached and underdelivered, and that's all I'm going to say about that. Kablam got mentioned. Absolutely, should be on there. I think Kablam was a great show that probably came a little late for me to put it in the best. And some of the stuff was cool. I remember the Prometheus. Was it Prometheus and Bob or something like that? Or I don't remember. Anyway, there was some really funny like claymation stuff. It's kind of Robot Chicken for kids. If any of you watch Robot Chicken now, that's kind of what Kablam was. Except Kablam was just awesome. Kablam had so many different elements to it. It was really, really cool, including action figures. Now that I think about it, Kablam really was kind of the predecessor to Robot Chicken. So thanks for mentioning all those guys. I really do appreciate it. Those are great ones. And here's some that aren't mentioned before I get to the whose block gets my vote for the win. Not mentioned that I think deserve mentioning. Pinwheel. Little known fact, some of you might know, Nickelodeon actually was initially called Pinwheel. The network was called Pinwheel for about 3 years. When Nickelodeon started, 1976, all the way up until I think about 1980 or so. It was actually called Pinwheel because Pinwheel was what was featured. And the show just ran like all day long. Along with another show called Today's Special, which if any of you remember Today's Special, God bless you. I remember those shows very well from my childhood. And they definitely were some of my favorites. But way before the 90s in the window that we're looking at. But I just thought I'd throw that out there. So those are some really awesome shows. Pinwheel actually did run into the 90s, which is why I think it could be on this, because it was actually run and repeat. There were like 300 episodes of the show. It just went forever. Hour long, too. And I think it might have been Canadian, but I'm not positive. Very electric company kind of feel to it. Anyway, that one should probably be in there. One that did run into the 90s, I think, but I could be wrong about this, is Mr. Wizard's World. I think Mr. Wizard's World, I know it started in the 80s. I know it probably actually stopped filming in the 80s, but they actually did run it on Nickelodeon in the 90s. I'm fairly certain about that. I need to go look it up. But Mr. Wizard's World probably needs to be on that as well. And then I want to say a few things about this. Of course, I mentioned before how they were very, very, very game show happy for a while. Nickelodeon was like a game show network for a while. Here are some of the game shows I think need to be on that, obviously. Double Dare, Guts with Mike O'Malley, who's now in all the Time Warner Cable commercials. Legends of the Hidden Temple, which was a fantastic show back in the 90s. Nick Arcade probably needs to be on that list. Anyway, the list goes on and on and on. For those of us that liked video games, Nick Arcade looked like the greatest thing in the universe, even though now looking at it, it looks like just the shittiest thing ever. It looks horrible, like you never would have been on that show. But anyway, those are shows on Nickelodeon that probably would be worthy of mention if we were going to run something from the 90s. Yeah. So there. Figure It Out, also hosted by Mike O'Malley. Anyway, so here we go. That being said, I want to say congratulations to our winner for this week, who I think picked the best block out of everybody. If this were the block, I would be recording it every single week. And that is Temmie John. Dun, 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 dun. Temmie John picked this block. Ren and Stimpy, followed by The Tomorrow People, followed by Are You Afraid of the Dark, followed by The Secret World of Alex Mack, which would replace Clarissa Explains It All. That is the winner. If that one was on right now, I would definitely be recording it every single night and watching it, because that is definitely worthy of it. Now, let's move on to my pick. Congratulations, Temmie John. My pick of the block that I would choose for the 90s or all that block. 4 shows. Here we go. First and foremost, do I even need to say it? You guys already know. It's Ren and Stimpy. Ren and Stimpy first. Enough said, right? Secondly, it would be Pete and Pete. The Adventures of Pete and Pete was just such an awesome show. And it so quintessentially fits the 90s. And there's so many of them. There are a tremendous number of episodes covering so many different subject matter and things like that. I just think it's a great, great show, and I'd love to see it. So Pete and Pete. Third, Salute Your Shorts. This show just gets my vote for one of the best of the 90s. It's kitschy as hell. It's so bright and happy and stupid, and it's almost like watching Saved by the Bell, Nickelodeon style. Which reminds me of another one that I'm sorry that we should have mentioned. This is not part of my block. Welcome Freshmen. That is a great show. That was a great show on in the 90s that did not get mentioned, and it should have been on there. Anyway, it's not my block. My number 4 is Rocko's Modern Life. Rocko's Modern Life is just such a great Nicktoon that it needs to be on the list. So my block, Ren and Stimpy, Pete and Pete, Salute Your Shorts, Rocko's Modern Life, 2 animated, 2 live action. If that were the block, I think they would have nailed it right out of the park for here's what the 90s were on Nickelodeon in 4 shows. So I hope you guys had as good a time coming up with the contributions as I did reading them. Brought back a lot of great memories, a ton of nostalgia going on there, and I'm really glad you guys enjoyed it. And there were so many great comments from you guys, so clearly you had a lot to say on it, and I think it's fantastic thinking back to that. And I'm glad to see, by the way, that there are networks that are paying attention to this. For those of us that are children of the 80s, and a few of us that are probably children of the 90s as well, there's a new channel called Hub, and Hub does a lot of the same kinds of work that what we talked about here. They resurrect some of those old shows. It's really strange and crazy, and I know this is going to sound stupid, but every day I get home and Gem and the Holograms is on the Hub. I have to watch that. That's great. So at night they show Family Ties episodes and other weird stuff. They have some G.I. Joe and stuff like Reboot, I think, is on it. It's really, really cool. There's some great stuff on it. Check out the Hub. For all of your nostalgia needs. There's my little commercial. They did not sponsor the Weekly Wringer this week. Okay. Man, we're just getting started, aren't we? So, in terms of new people, got to acknowledge 2 new commenters this week. Want to just say welcome to you guys. There is Zoc with an amazing avatar picture. Thought that was fantastic. And Fred the Dragon. To both of you, welcome to the community. Glad to have you on board. Hope to see you contribute again and again moving forward into the future. Welcome to the community of the Weekly Wringer. All right, guys. Now this week I promised you, moving right along, to talk about some issues in the state of PC gaming. Now, some of you might not be interested in this question because you're not a PC gamer, but that's okay. It's deceptive. It's not true. I think you're going to have some things to say about this. So I was reading something this week. Diablo 3, which is a game that many of us, especially those of us that might not be PC gamers but used to be or are PC gamers now, are really looking forward to. Diablo is one of those tremendous series in the history of gaming that is just incredible. Blizzard can clearly afford to be like Valve and to create one solid game every couple years. And WoW obviously pays their bills in the meantime, so they can afford to do that, and most game companies cannot. But Diablo is something all of us are looking forward to. Even some of us that have never played it probably are looking forward to this game. The point is, it came out this week that one of the requirements for playing Diablo 3, whether you're playing solo or whether you're playing with a ton of people, is that you have to have a constant internet connection. Interesting, and there is some speculation as to why that might be. The official Blizzard answer to this, of course, and I think it's a good one, is that with Diablo 2 there was rampant cheating, and there were a lot of reasons why cheating became so popular in Diablo 2. Now, that probably doesn't honestly affect people like me, who are more interested in playing Diablo for the story, and who are more interested in playing Diablo for the single-player elements, just for the experience, because Diablo is just a tremendous game. But, cheating is going to be one of those things. You're going to need to rely on a constant connection so that your characters can continuously be verified. They can check for discrepancies in terms of how your character looks in terms of size and what's going on in terms of the last time you logged on, so on and so forth. There'll be lots of ways that they can track that. I think that's great. I'm very anti-cheating, right? Cheating sucks. Cheating takes the whole community down with it, and it's a terrible thing. Modding is different than cheating, but cheating definitely sucks. I think we can all agree about that. That being said, okay, the other element to why I think they're doing this with Diablo should be obvious. It's because of piracy, right? They want you to be able to maintain a constant internet connection so that they can continuously verify that your copy of Diablo is, in fact, a legitimate one. Blizzard has said this was never a driving force in this initiative, but I would say that I don't believe them. I would say that it's probably a force if it's not a driving force. I think they probably like the idea of having anti-piracy being internet-based, cloud-based, if you will, rather than being disk-based, DRM, that kind of thing. Where, you know, I'm not saying that it's not going to be difficult to copy the game. I'm sure people are going to copy the game, but, you know, having internet accounts and running with it, I think that's going to be a lot more effective in the long run in stamping out the piracy for Diablo 3. But it brought up some interesting questions, because there's obviously some interesting debates about that. Some people are outraged that they're going to be doing this. Some people are just thrilled. But it really got me thinking about piracy for the PC. And so I wanted to ask you guys a question for this week about piracy. And is the weekly ringer for next week. How do you think piracy affects PC gaming today, in the year 2011, right? So right now, today, what do you think piracy, how do you think it's playing to the market of PC gaming generally? What do you think the effects are? This could be anything, guys. You could talk about effects on development. You could talk effects on the market and the economics. You could talk about the playership. You could talk about anything. There's so many different ways to take this question. I just want to know what you guys think about it. What's your opinion on how piracy is affecting PC? Just stick to PC games, guys. Let's not talk about consoles. PC gaming today. Really interested to see what all you guys have to say about that. Whether you're a PC gamer or not, you can definitely have an opinion on that. And I think it's definitely worthy of a little bit of study. Some of you that might want to read up on a few things before you come back, listen, throw some statistics at us. I'm loving that. If you got arguments to make arguments with it. I can't wait to see what you all come up with. So there we go again. We've spent a better part of an hour now. It's not an hour, but the better part of an hour talking here, or for you guys listening on the Weekly Ringer, as I always appreciate your viewership. Thanks so much for commenting. Thank you for being a part of the great community out there for the Weekly Ringer. I am the Commodore from the clan of the Grey Wolf, and there is no reset button.